Welcome everyone to another edition of Making an Impact. I am your host, Simply Sensational Billy James. We're coming off of last week's Impact Wrestling. We have a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion, the undefeated Ethan Carter III, EC3. And tonight, EC3 is in charge. What does the TNA Champion have in store for us? Also, will the former TNA World Heavyweight Champion have something to say, Kurt Angle, about his loss and losing the title to EC3. Plus, it's the return of Dixie Carter. She makes her return to Impact Wrestling television since she went through a table last year. What will Dixie Carter have to say? Also, we have in a street fight match is a return match from Slammiversary, but this time it's under street fight rules. It's Jessie Godderz takes on his former teammate Robbie E, and it should be a good one. And we got much more. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll talk more about the ongoing story between TNA and Global Force Wrestling. So there's a lot to talk about and a lot of action from this week's show. So from this week's Impact Wrestling. So let's get to all the action. Oh, what a mouthful! Right now. Okay, we had EC3 come down the ring talking about how he was totally undefeated. He did the impossible. He defeated Kurt Angle, became the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He's unstoppable, and that it is the reign of the Carters. And that tonight his aunt Dixie Carter is returning, and tonight that he's in charge, and it's going to be one hell of a ride. And he makes the announcement that he will be defending the TNA World Heavyweight Championship tonight against not one, not two, but three different opponents, three different matches. Well, we get Matt Hardy, who comes out and mocks EC3 by saying that he's got a campaign called #MattForChamp, and he wants a title shot against EC3 in one of those matches. But EC3 informs him, well, sorry, you're booked in a tag team match. Oh yeah, that's right, your brother's sitting at home with a broken leg. Well, sorry, your bad luck. You're going to have to go in on your own against these two guys who are pissed from last week. And Matt Hardy winds up having to face the Dirty Hills. Austin Aries, the greatest man that ever lived, and the it factor of professional wrestling, Bobby Roode. Matt does his best at the beginning, but then Aries and Roode take control, and they keep him, isolated. They use distraction of the referee to take some cheap shots. Matt Hardy comes back, and he gets a submission hold, which I believe he called the ice pick during his first run in TNA. It's a chicken wings biting scissors. He first gets it on Bobby Roode, but Bobby Roode tags out, only for Aries to get caught in the mood. They come back. They take control. Aries and Roode take control of the match again, trying to keep Hardy down. But Hardy's able to come back. He hits a bulldog on Aries while hitting a drop kick on Roode. During this, Matt Hardy even hits the twist of fate. But in the end, the Dirty Hills are just too much for Matt Hardy. When he goes to suplex Aries, Bobby Roode sweeps his feet from the outside, holds the feet down. Aries gets the 1, 2, 3. Referee doesn't see a thing, and your Dirty Hills are your winners. While this match was going on, EC3 was on commentary, and he was in full heel mode. It was interesting to hear, but it was a squash match in sorts that anybody who's going to challenge EC3, he's going to put him in a squash match, and that's basically what it was. Dirty Hills looking aggressive after their loss to the Wolves in the final match of the Best of 5 series, where we saw the Wolves walk out with the TNA tag team titles last week. So, but I had it predicted correctly who was going to be the challengers for for EC3, now that EC3 is the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and we got our first guy stepping up to the plate, Matt Hardy. Will he get his title? Will he get a title shot? That is the big question. We'll just have to wait and see. Okay, we had Drew Galloway, Eli Drake, and Micah come down to the ring to make their final words to the Impact fans, because they lost last week to the Beatdown Clan and are forced to disband. The Risings no more. They each say they're sorry that they failed, but Drew Galloway makes it clear that while it is dark and bleak, there's always a light at dawn. And that hashtag stand up will continue, that he will keep fighting to bring what's right back to professional wrestling. Micah and Eli Drake leave, and he makes it, EC3 starts running his mouth, and Drew Galloway makes it clear, hey, I want a title shot too. EC3 says, well, you know what, you're going to have to, it's traditional when a group breaks up that they, face another faction. Oh, whoops, you're all by yourself. You got no partners. You're taking on the Revolution. So here comes Abyss, Koyai, and Manic. No James Storm. And they beat down and just go to town on Drew Galloway, beating him to the mat. But for some reason, there's an argument going on between Koyai and Abyss. This gives a chance for Drew Galloway to make some kind of a comeback. And he gets a little offense in, but then he gets caught with the sky high from Koyai, and Koyai goes for the pin, but Abyss stops him saying, I want him. Well, this gives Drew the opening that he needs. He hits a drop kick to the back of Koyai, who sends him head first into Abyss. They're taken out of the equation. Manic comes from top rope with crossbody. He gets caught by Drew Galloway, who hits a backbreaker on Manic, and then hits a running boot, takes him down 1, 2, 3. Drew Galloway walks away with the win. It's supposed to be a squash match, but the bickering between Abyss and Koyak cost him the match. I think this is being done because, in case you didn't know, spoilers are out there, and it can't be helped. These spoilers, you couldn't avoid these. James Storm is no longer with TNA. He finished up his run. He was the last original from the very beginning, TNA Superstar, and he's gone now. Where is he going? Nobody knows. Could he be going to Global Force Wrestling? That's $1 million question. Or could he show up someplace else like Ring of Honor or NXT, for example? We don't know. Or will he be back in TNA? We don't know. We just know that he is gone. So this is probably TNA's way of breaking up the Revolution and bringing some closure to that faction, since it was James Storm that founded the Revolution, who always said there is room for just one. There's always, it's always room for one more. So, yeah, these first two matches are just real squash matches. This one, again, it's the same squash match, but the only difference is because of the arguing and bickering between Abyss and Koyai, it gave Drew Galloway the way to get in there and get the win. Now, will Drew Galloway get a title shot against EC3? That's a big question. Drew Galloway's been in the top five for contenders to the TNA World Heavyweight title. So will he get a title shot and win? That's $1 million question. But it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Okay, in the back, EC3 was approached by, of all people, Mr. Anderson, who congratulated EC3 on winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, and then proceeds to challenge him for the title, saying, hey, how about you and me for the title tonight in one of those matches? EC3 says, nope, I don't think so. And besides that, you got a match tonight against the Human hating machine, Bram, as they're calling him now. So the match starts. Bram starts, off, in his usual manner, but Anderson Irish whips him into the ring corner. He's then quickly, as the match progresses, Anderson's able to hit a green blade plunge followed by a senton. Bram kicks out on the 2 count. Anderson goes for a mic check. Bram blocks it, only to get clotheslined over the top rope by Anderson. But Anderson, for all of his troubles, gets nailed by Bram with a steel chair, calling for a disqualification. Anderson wins the match by disqualification, but Bram doesn't care. Bram proceeds to beat the living crap out of Anderson, ramming his heads on the stairs of the entranceway and screaming the steel steps. And then he goes screaming for them to lower Anderson's mic, and he intimidates a production assistant that's by ringside. They finally lower the mic. He mocks Anderson and then proceeds to take the mic and mercilessly beats Anderson in the face and head with the mic while laughing. So it looks to me like we're going to have a feud between Bram and Anderson. Obviously, this challenge of him challenging past TNA Superstars is over with, and they're going to concentrate on doing a feud between Anderson and Bram. It's kind of an interesting choice, but it gives Anderson something to do, it gives Bram something to do, and it may be an interesting feud. We'll just have to wait and see. But, why go through the trouble of doing this challenging former TNA Superstars if they're not going to continue it off and have a payoff? That's what I don't get. That's my only complaint about this. Again, this is another match, supposed to be a squash match and such, but this is like 3 squash matches in a row, and to me, we need a little more action and such. So average so far for the show. I'm not saying it's terrible, but it could be much better, but it's not so far. But hey, we still got more to go. Okay, we had our return match, a street fight match between Jessie Godderz and Robbie E. And oh my God, what a match. These two guys tore it up and they beat the living crap out of each other. Jessie came out first, and then when Robbie came out, he came out head on strong, taking it to Jessie Godderz, ramming him into the ring post and just went to town on him. Throws him to the outside of the ring, and then he gets a trash can lid, gets a running start, nails Jessie Godderz in the head, then sets him on the steel steps, takes another shot with the kendo stick. Not kendo stick, I mean the stair chairs, but he does eventually get a kendo stick, and he goes to town on Jessie, puts the trash can over his gonads, and then nails him with the kendo stick. Eventually, Jessie's able to make a comeback, hits a nice drop kick on Robbie E as he was coming off the ropes, and such. Also, Robbie E, not too shabby himself, he hits a nice suplex, bringing Jessie in from the outside of the ring, standing on the second rope. Very impressive. Takes a lot of skill to do that. Jessie Godderz gets a hold of the kendo stick, and he goes to town on Robbie E, beating the living crap out of him, but eventually Robbie's able to get rid of the kendo stick when he hits a Russian leg sweep on Jessie Godderz, and it gets even. These two guys went back and forth, but Robbie E comes off with a crossbody. He gets stopped by Jessie Godderz, but later on, Robbie E is able to set up 2 steel chairs and hits a DDT, but Jessie Godderz kicks out. And then Jessie Godderz, again, when Robbie goes for the crossbody, the DDT happened for the crossbody, I'm sorry, but the action was just so great at getting it a little mixed up. Anyway, when Robbie went for crossbody, Jessie caught him and then power bombed him into the 2 steel chairs. I mean, the chairs didn't break or bend, but it had to hurt Robbie E's back. But Robbie E kicks out of the pin attempt. This pisses Jessie Godderz off. He's had enough. He takes a steel chair and he puts it right over Robbie's back, sits down, pulls Robbie's legs back, locks in the Adonis crab, a Boston crab, and it is very obvious this thing's painful. Robbie is screaming in pain but refuses to tap out. He refuses to tap out, but the referee calls the match. When Robbie passes out, Jessie Godderz wins by submission due to Robbie E passing out. One hell of a match. These guys, and I'm just describing it, just a fourth of the great action in this match. You know, this is the match of the night you want to watch because it was just so freaking awesome. Robbie E proved that he deserves to be in the shot lot. You know, he deserves to have a chance to go after the TNA World Heavyweight title. He's the kind of guy, he's an original that you could build around, and I think he would make a good TNA World Heavyweight Champion if TNA management would get behind him. Now, Jessie Godderz, great look. You know, he's got that WWE look that WWE wants. And he's really improved, believe it or not. You know, when he started out, he didn't hardly know anything about wrestling. And it's like, because he's from Big Brother. But now, look at him. He's legit. Great match. This is the match I recommend that you watch. So if you hadn't seen it, you need to go on YouTube and watch it. Or if you check your cable provider, it's on-demand service, and see if Impact Wrestling is available on demand. It appears Comcast, if you're a Comcast Xfinity subscriber and you have Destination America, you should be able to watch Impact Wrestling. They keep it archived. I think they had like 4 weeks worth before they wipe it. So you got like a little time to watch it if you know, if you got some time, and it'd be well worth it. At least this match would be. Okay, we had the first match where EC3 is defending his TNA World Heavyweight Championship, and he talks about he believes things come full circle, and he says that the person that will be challenging him in his first match defending the TNA World Heavyweight title will be the very first man he defeated. North Foreman. Yeah, I probably butchered his name, but a nobody. And basically he comes down, makes him sound like he's a complete legend. EC3 goes to shakes his hands, nails him with a boot in the gut, hits the one percenter, 1, 2, 3, it's over. So EC3, you know, mocks like a fighter drinking his water and such in the corner. And then he announces his second match, his next opponent. He says, if I be a man from the land, can I meet a man from the deep blue sea? And he talks about it being Shark Week, and we find out his opponent is, oh shell yeah, Shark Boy. Shark Boy comes down, doing the old shell yeah routine, and EC3 says, do you think you have a chance to defeat me? And Shark Boy says, oh shell yeah, and starts laying a smackdown to EC3, but EC3 quickly gets back, nails him with a click blow. 1 percenter, 1, 2, 3, it's over. Second match in the can with Josh Matthews saying, this shark tail's over. Anyway, EC3 gets ready to announce his next opponent when we hear Kurt Angle's music play. Kurt Angle comes out and says, hey, guess what, EC3? You're going to defend that title against me whether you like it or not, because I have a guarantee clause in my contract that says I get a guaranteed rematch any place, anytime I want it, and I'm having it tonight. You're defending that title against me. So to EC3's dismay, he has no choice. So now we have, later tonight, Kurt Angle, EC3, the rematch for the TNA World Heavyweight title. Will Kurt Angle regain the title and hand EC3 his first loss, or will EC3 retain the TNA World Heavyweight Championship? We'll find out later on tonight. as far as these two matches go, all they did, story-wise, they had a purpose. They propelled EC3 as the heel champion who wants to avoid legitimate contenders. In that sense, it works, but from a match sense, it was a waste of time. But from a story advancement point, it got the job done. It made the point, and it put over EC3's heel character and did a great job of doing that. Okay, earlier in the night in the back, EC3 got another challenge for one of the three matches that he proclaimed he was going to have tonight, defending his TNA World Heavyweight Championship in the form of former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, the Destroyer, Bobby Lashley. But of course, EC3 takes the advantage of he's in charge by telling Bobby Lashley that he's booked in a match against the big guy, his bodyguard, Tyrus. Okay, this match starts out, and Tyrus looks pretty impressive, able to take Lashley down. He actually body slams him, has him down, and is able to break a submission hold by Lashley. And not a long match. It's just an average match, but what's the game changer of the match is Tyrus goes for a top rope move. Lashley hoists him onto his shoulders and hits an electric chair. Impressive to pick up that kind of weight. After hitting the electric chair, Bobby Lashley hits the spear. 1, 2, 3. Bobby Lashley gets the win. Short match. The whole premises was another obstacle to keep legitimate challengers to EC3's title away, and Bobby Lashley is is in there in the mix. So will he get a title shot? And if so, win. Like I said, it's a quick match. Wasn't much to it, but nevertheless, it served its purpose as getting EC over as a heel champion that wants to avoid illegitimate contenders. Okay, we had a knockouts match. Madison Rayne taking on the returning Velvet Sky, who earned her spot back on the knockouts roster last week when she defeated Angelina Love. Madison Rayne makes it very clear to Velvet that whatever she's doing now with her look ain't doing. She looks like the idiots out in the crown, and that Madison herself is a polished queen bee. She rules the knockouts division, but Velvet ain't listening to none of it. She goes to town on Madison, beating her down. It gets to the outside of the ring, and she throws her into steps, chanting to the crowds as the crowds is cheering. Velvet rolls Madison back in, but that's when Madison starts taking control, when she nails Madison with a nice knee shot, and then she takes further control, hitting a Northern Light suplex and a series of drives the face into the mat. Then she goes for a 5, chokes her across the ropes for a 5, breaking just before the 5 count. Then she goes for the scissor stomp, and she then, after hitting the scissor stomp, starts parading around, turning her back on Velvet. Not a very good idea. Velvet gets back in control of the match with several kicks to the body and to the head, and this allows her to hit the stunner. 1, 2, 3. Velvet Sky's your winner. So, Velvet Sky, will we see her in the title picture? Where does Madison Rayne go? That's a $1 billion question. You got to look at the roster and see what you got. You got the Dollhouse, consistent of Tara Terrell, Marty Bell, and Jade. 3 heels there. Madison's Rayne, bonafide heel, and Angelina Love, bonafide heel. On the other side, you have Velvet Sky. You have Awesome Kong, Gail Kim. Brooke, aka Brooke Tessmacher, and Rebel. So we got 10 knockouts here, 5 faces, 5 heels. Who's going to get the title shots against the title and such? Well, one of these knockouts will be getting a title shot next week, as Tara Terrell will be defending her TNA Knockouts title next week on Impact Wrestling. Who will that knockout be? I'll let you know later on in the show. Okay, we had our main event of the night. Kurt Angle getting his rematch against EC3, Ethan Carter III, for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Well, bell rings, and of course EC3 tries to take advantage. He keeps rolling in and out of the ring, trying to frustrate Angle, but Angle finally grabs him, throws him into the ring, and goes to town with a series of punches and stomps. EC3 rolls back to the outside, telling the ref count quickly because he wants a 10 count so that he can keep his title. But Angle gets him back in the ring and connects with not 1, not 2, but 5 German suplexes on EC3. Tyrus tries to stick his nose into the situation, but he gets knocked off the apron for his troubles by Angle, and Angle then gets the Angle lock onto EC3. Well, EC3 knows he better do something. And what does he decide to do? He purposely hits referee Brian Hefner, knocking him out. Well, EC3's screaming in pain and starts to tap as referee Stickler comes in. Stickler calls straight for the bell, not even looking at the action, calls for the bell. Earl Hebner comes down, trying to get Angle off of EC3. Angle releases the hold, thinks he's won the match and the title. EC3 makes a mad dash to the outside of the crowd, running for his life, and it's officially announced the winner of the match by disqualification, Kurt Angle. However, still the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, Ethan Carter III, EC3. Okay, this was done. It keeps EC3 undefeated, but also makes him look perfectly as he's supposed to be, a heel champion who wants to avoid legitimate contenders to the title. So I do think Kurt Angle will get another title shot. When will that happen? I do not know, but nevertheless, it wasn't that long of a match. I would say maybe 5-7 minutes. But nevertheless, it served its purpose story-wise, and it was to put over EC3 as a heel champion who wants to avoid any legitimate contenders and will do anything to keep the title at any cost, no matter what it takes. So I think it's going to be interesting. How does EC3's title reign go from here? Okay, we come back to the ring. EC3's in the ring after Kurt Angle is escorted to the back. EC3 proudly sits there and says, got out of that one. And then he introduces his aunt, Dixie Carter, who comes down to the ring. And he's expecting her to congratulate him. And she tries to get some words out, but he won't let her. She finally grabs the mic from him and says, look, you don't get it. Last time I was in an Impact Wrestling ring, I was put through a table and broke my back by a monster. He's like, yeah, and that monster paid. She's like, no, I was the monster because I was lying. I was out of control. I was ruining this company. And he quickly says, no, we're Carters. The world needs us. And she's like, no, you just don't get it. And it says, what you've been doing is, for weeks, is spewing lies and yada yada. And she tells him, she says, from now, you got the title, now you're going to have to earn it and keep it on your own merit and skill, not your last name. And she makes it very clear to him, you're out of control. But you're right. Somebody needs to be in charge. Somebody needs to take control, make the tough decisions to quit the manipulation going on and make Impact Wrestling the best professional wrestling company out there. and she makes it clear it's not her. So it looks like TNA is setting up to have a new authority figure, and it's not Dixie Carter. So who will it be? Supposedly we'll find out next week. I think it's interesting that now the carpet's been pulled under EC3. He no longer has that support mechanism from Aunt Dixie, Aunt D. So what's going to happen with EC3? I think the way he's been built up as a heel character, he's been built up pretty well. And I think his title reign is going to be interesting. It's going to be better than some other heel champions' title runs because of the fact is there's no authority group behind him to support him. He basically is just him and his bodyguard, and that's it. So we'll just have to wait to see how that's going to go. But next week we should find out who is going to be in charge of Impact Wrestling come next week. Okay, Superstars of the Week, Jessie Godderz and Robbie E for their street fight match. It was the best match of the night. I thought they did a great job. They told a wonderful story. You believed that the hatred between the two guys was real. They were beating the living crap out of each other, and it was well done. Kudos to both guys. I think they really deserved this. They put on one hell of a match, and when you got guys like Austin Aries and Bobby Roode on the show, and to outshine for once is awesome. So these guys did a great job. Kudos to them. Kudos. Also during the show there was an interview with Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett's talking about the relationship between Global Force Wrestling and Impact Wrestling. Things are getting interesting. It does look like they're going to go a invasion angle. Not this weekend, but the prior weekend, Eric Young invaded a Global Force Wrestling live event and attacked Jeff Jarrett, stealing the TNA King of the Mountain Championship away from Jeff Jarrett. So you got things like this going on. We know that Magnus is now in Global Force Wrestling. Mickie James is in Global Force Wrestling. Both of them will be at the first TV taping for Global Force Wrestling, and Mickie will be competing in the tournament to crown the first Global Force Wrestling champion. If she was to win the tournament, she would solidify, excuse me, hard word to get out for me, but solidify her place in women's wrestling history as legitimately one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time. She would become guaranteed the only woman to have held every major championship women's title in every organization. WWE Women's Championship, the WWE Divas Championship, TNA Knockouts Championship, and then Global Force Wrestling Championship. The only two titles that would really add to her prestige and legacy would be the win the Shimmers Championship, Women's Championship, and the Shines Women's Championship. Okay. Contenders have come out of the woodworks, and they were contenders that I talked about. Matt Hardy, Drew Galloway, Bobby Lashley, Mr. Anderson, Kurt Angle. While not all are on the list as the top 5 contenders. Sorry, Mr. Anderson, you're out of the running. Kurt Angle, Bobby Lashley, Drew Galloway, Matt Hardy, and Bram are your top 5 contenders. They're not in that order, but they are in the top 5 list of top 5 contenders. So who is going to get the next shot? Well, technically, Kurt Angle is the #1 contender, but after his match, which he could legitimately claim, hey, I won, so I deserve another shot at the title. And it could be Kurt Angle gets that chance next week, as it's already been announced that EC3 will defend the TNA World Heavyweight Championship next week. Tigre Uno will be defending the TNA X Division Championship. And the longest reigning Knockouts champion, Taryn Terrell, will defend the TNA Knockouts title next week. So could we see new champions next week? That's going to be an interesting question. And who will their opponents be? I believe it's been announced that DJZ and Grado will get their titles, will be in a triple threat match against Tiger Uno. I believe that is a triple threat match. But who will be challenging Taryn for the Knockouts title, and who will challenge EC3 for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship? That's the big question there. Looks like we're going to have the feud between Bram and Mr. Anderson. That's going to be interesting. But I question them, why did they cut off Bram's challenging past Impact Wrestling Superstars? I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. Is the feud between Jessie Godderz and Robbie E over? No, I think it's just begun, and I think it's going to be a good feud. We'll just have to see how long TNA is going to keep it going. $1 million question right now is that TNA needs more tag teams. Right now, they just have the Wolves and Dirty Heels, and I think we've talked about the situation with the Dirty Heels. As you know, Austin Aries is no longer with TNA Wrestling, and you're probably asking yourself, well, he's still in my graphics. Yeah, I'm leaving him in my graphics until because he's still part of, officially he's still part of TNA because the shows that were taped with him haven't aired yet. But once those have aired, I will be changing the opening graphics. I hate to change it, but I will be changing it. So, with that said, this Impact Wrestling was a hit or miss for me. I think that it was more story-driven than match-driven. And I think that is the weaker point to this. But nevertheless, the way it was story-driven, it accomplished what it was supposed to do story-wise. So, from a story standpoint, of story advancement, it did a hell of a job. Hopefully next week we can get a combination of matches and storytelling. Who is going to be the new authority figure? You know, that's $1 million question there. So we'll just have to wait next week and find out. But hey, so you know, it is what it is. But you know, it's an interesting time to be a wrestling fan because you know, there's a lot of choices out there, especially on national TV now. You have, of course, WWE, you have SmackDown, you have Raw. If you have the WWE Network, you have NXT, you have Superstars. Hulu Plus, in the U.S., you have Main Event, where you can watch the latest episode. If you have the El Rey Network, you have Lucha Underground. Destination America, you've got Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor. So it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. And where will Global Force Wrestling land home? That's $1 million question there. So we just got to wait and see what's going to happen. But I think that for TNA to survive, I think possibly working with Global Force Wrestling is going to be good for them. But we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, plug time. Yes, it's that time of the show. We're going to wrap things up and we're going into plug time. Every Tuesday night, it's the Wrestling Debate. It's brought to you by the Nerdport Network on Blog Talk Radio, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Join myself, my partner in crime, my good buddy, John P. Mayer. We're joined by Sean the Shark Williams, the Dirty Diva herself, Michelle, Andrew B. We're all there. We talk about WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, Pro Wrestling Syndicate, you name it, we talk about it. And I'm sure after a 2-week hiatus, we've got a lot to say and a lot of things going on in the wrestling world, and we're probably going to talk a lot about it. We got a lot to say, so you got to check that out. Also on Wednesdays, it is my buddy John P. Mayer. He has got his finger on the pulse of independent wrestling. That's right, it's an independent point of view. It's brought to you by Blog Talk. It's brought to you by the Nerdport Network on Blog Talk Radio. For the exact dates, for the exact times on Wednesdays, check the Nerdport Network's Facebook page. But like I said, my good buddy John has his finger on the pulse of independent wrestling, especially with Pro Wrestling Syndicate up in the New York, Jersey area. He gets some great interviews with promoters and wrestlers, so you got to check that out. Also on Thursdays, it's the Dirty Divas. Yes, Michelle and Liz are always there, giving a feminine view of the things going on in wrestling. So you got to check that out. That's on Thursdays on Blog Talk Radio. And it's also brought to you by the Nerdport Network. And check the Nerdport Network's Facebook page for times. Ugh, that was a mouthful. So, that's it for this week's edition of Making an Impact. I've been your host, Simply Sensational Billy James. Next week's show might be a little later posted than this one was, because I got work next Saturday, so it will be posted late, unfortunately. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for your support, and you know, if you're a wrestling fan, go and see a live event, whether it's WWE, Global Force Wrestling, Ring of Honor, NXT, whatever it is, go and see it. You're going to have a great time. I'm telling you right now, if I could go to an NXT house show, I would. There is a WWE house show that's coming to my area at the end of August, but I'm not going to be able to go because of money reasons. So, but nevertheless, if you get a chance to go, you need to go. Okay, guys? Anyway, once again, I've been your host, Simply Sensational Billy James, and we'll catch you all next week.